Hey folks, this is Brian and welcome back to Poli-Tic Talks. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the independent group that surfaced in the United Kingdom over the last couple of weeks. In the first section, I'm going to be talking about the origins of the group, kind of where they came from. In the second section of the video, I'm going to be talking about the impact that this group has had on the Brexit conversation in the UK. In the third section, I'm going to be talking about the reception that the United Kingdom general population has given the group. And in the fourth section, I'm going to be talking about a prediction I made in my video on a second Brexit referendum, and I'm also going to be talking about the independent group's possible chances in a future UK election. So let's get started. So what became known as the independent group in the United Kingdom was actually a collaboration by a bunch of former MPs from the Conservative Party and the Labour Party of the United Kingdom. On February 18th, 7 MPs from the Labour Party announced their resignation on the grounds that there was alleged anti-Semitism within the Labour Party's leadership, their own issues with the leadership of the Labour Party on a host of other issues, as well as Labour's part in helping move Brexit along within the Parliament. On February 19th, another Labour MP resigned from the party to join the independent group, and the following day, 3 MPs from the Conservative Party resigned from their party and also joined that group. The members of Parliament that resigned from the Conservative Party cited the hardline stance of the right wing of the Conservative Party on Brexit as their reasons for resigning. Since losing several of their MPs, the Labour Party has also seen local councillors as well as other members of Parliament abandon their party or resign, but anyone that left after February 19th has not formally joined forces with the independent group. So when asked by the media about the defections, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn stated that he believed that the members that defected from his party should have to run in by-elections. The reason for this is that those members won their seats by running as Labour MPs. Now that they're no longer part of the Labour Party, he believes that they should have to recheck with their constituents about whether or not they are qualified or have legitimacy to hold those positions. As of March 5th, the independent group is in talks to acquire official party status in the United Kingdom and presumably would be on the ballot in any future elections. So in this section, I'm going to talk about why it's likely that the independent group will be relevant on the conversation about Brexit in the United Kingdom. So the reason I suspect that the bipartisan group of MPs that form the independent group might work well together on the Brexit situation is because, firstly, the initial members of the Labour Party that defected stated, among other things, their disagreements with the party's Brexit stance as reasons for defecting. And on the Conservative side, several of the MPs that left the Conservative Party, similar to the Labour situation, they also stated their party's stance on Brexit as a reason for leaving. So with all that being said, as the independent group is not an official party at this point, it doesn't have an official platform. And even in the literature that it has released up to this point, Brexit and its policy on Brexit hasn't been officially declared. So far, the only literature that's been released from the independent group was a personal 50-page pamphlet by former Labour MP Chuka Umunna. The 50-page pamphlet outlined Mr. Umunna's position on everything from taxes to tuition fees. It's important to note that his positions could be described as a nuanced left-leaning policy position, particularly on the tuition fees conversation. It might be interesting to see whether or not the former members of the Conservative Party that joined this group agree with Mr. Umunna's position on some of these issues, because as I said, they are a little bit to the left of center, so it will be interesting to see if there can be some agreement within the party on whether or not this wants to become official policy. So in terms of how the independent group is affecting the Brexit conversation is several days after the defection of a couple of his MPs, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn stated that if the Parliament's backup plan for Brexit was defeated, which as of today it has been, Labour would then support calls for a second Brexit referendum. So this is pure conjecture. I don't have any hard evidence to back this one up, so take it with a grain of salt. But I suspect the reason that Mr. Corbyn decided after he lost these MPs to suddenly throw his support behind a second Brexit referendum is because of the support by the general population that the independent group has received. A poll was taken that stated that 1 in 3 members of the British public would consider voting for the independent group if they were officially a party in the next election. So as a caveat to that, only 4% of those polled confirmed that they would cast a ballot for the independent group if they were an official party. So that's an important distinction to make. A lot of people have said they would consider voting for the party, but only 4% have said that they would. Essentially, I think Mr. Corbyn realized that if this independent group became an official party and they didn't move towards at least a second Brexit referendum, if not a full-on Remain policy, they might get outflanked and lose several votes to the independent group in the next election. On the Conservative side of things, the positive reception that the independent group has received may also force the Conservative Party to sideline some of the more right-wing advocates for a no-deal Brexit in negotiations with the European Union. So what no-deal Brexit actually means is that they're advocating that the UK withdraw from the European Union without finalizing trade deals with all of the individual members of the European Union. A lot of people are fearful of this course of action because it might have a very severe impact on the UK economy once they withdraw. So just because I like to cover my bases here on this channel, it's entirely possible that once the independent group becomes an official party and puts out an official party platform or manifesto, the British public may eventually sour on the group and it may lose support for the general electorate for the election. Even if this is the case, I think the value of the independent group is that it has shown to Prime Minister Theresa May and Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn that there may be policy space for a more nuanced and perhaps liberal policy position on Brexit. Okay, so in this section, I just want to talk briefly about a prediction I made in my video on a second Brexit referendum and why that shouldn't happen. And I also want to briefly give a prediction about what I think the independent group's chances are in the next election if they were to have one. So in my video on a second Brexit referendum, I stated that, first of all, a second Brexit referendum should not happen. And I believe that any politician that is in favor of Remain should get the support of those who want to remain, as opposed to a second Brexit referendum, which would undermine the legitimacy of the will of the people. While the independent group hasn't officially come out in favor of Remain, and as a matter of fact hasn't published any literature regarding Brexit at all, I believe that if there's anywhere that Remainers can throw their support in the next election, assuming that they have official party status, I think there might be appetite out there for them to take up that space on the policy umbrella. If they're able to build on the success that they've already had in terms of opinion polls, they may be able to siphon off other MPs from both the Conservative and the Labour parties and build on that success and eventually slowly smooth out a Remain policy. The other major asset that the independent group has is that its constituents' members were both members of a right-wing party and a left-wing party. So they may be able to take voters that, first of all, haven't voted before because they're so jaded with the political system. They may be able to take in voters who see political cooperation and it attracts them. Totally aside from the fact that on the Brexit conversation, which is what I'm going to be talking about mainly in this channel, is they may be able to flank both major parties and bring them towards a more moderate Brexit policy. Anyway, guys, I think that's it for me on this topic. As I mentioned earlier in the video, there was a vote in the House of Commons in the UK today, which we might have to make another video about either the next one or somewhere down the road, because I think there might be some more things about to unravel in the UK political system, so I might have some opinions on that at a later point. But in the meantime, thanks for watching this video. Please feel free to like and subscribe. If you have any comments or criticisms to the analysis I've laid out in this video, let me know in the comments, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.